Greetings, YouTube. I read something the other day by Fred Clark over at the Slacktivist, and he's been able to articulate something that I haven't been able to quite nail down for myself until now. And that is the difference between civil liberties and individual liberties. And there is a difference. For me, individual liberties have always existed within civil liberties. That you cannot have individual liberties without civil liberties. It's just the way I've always thought. I don't know how I arrived at that position, but it's where I am. So when I encounter people like Ron Paul and his fellow libertarians who have completely divorced these things, I have a problem. I find myself in having an inability to understand how they've arrived at their position, and I also am confused by the fact that on occasion I agree with them, and then I can turn around and look at what they're doing and think that they're absolutely insane, almost in the same thought, because they have divorced civil liberties from individual liberties. And what do I mean by civil liberties and individual liberties? Well, civil liberties, for example, the Civil Rights Act back in the 60s. That is a great example of a civil liberty issue. The United States came together. We decided that, yes, this is something that we all agree on. Minorities should have an equal say in our society, even though Caucasians are the dominant racial group. That's civil liberty. Everybody agrees to it. Now, an individual liberty, for example, would be that someone that really thinks that everyone should have the right to smoke marijuana. As an individual issue. As long as you're not harming anybody else, an individual issue, you should be able to do that. And I agree with that, even though I am opposed to the use of drugs. Now, the problem is if you have nothing but individual liberties, you don't have a society any longer. You have anarchy. You have no connection with anyone. Everyone becomes an individual, sovereign unto themselves, with no connection with anybody else. Whereas under civil liberties, it's an agreement. For example, I live in this house. This is my house. Why? Because society says that the relationship I have chosen to establish between myself and my lender is a viable, legitimate relationship. And my neighbors have accepted the fact that I have purchased this home, and everyone agrees that this is my home, that is their home. They don't walk into my home, I don't walk into their home. Now, if someone were to show up at my home and just walk in with a suitcase and say, I'm moving in, I could tell them to leave, and I'd be well within my right. If they don't, I can call the police will take them away. If they try to harm me, I can defend myself. Why? Because all of us have agreed that that is within my right to defend my home that is mine, because we all agree that it's mine. Now, there was a time in American history when individual rights were the norm. But that time is past. That was back in the era of the frontier, where we had the huge expanse that went to the west. Actually, that way. Went to the west. But that era is closed. There's nowhere else for us to go. You can't just pick up stakes, go off by yourself, and try to survive and see if you can do well all by your lonesome. That doesn't exist any longer. We all have to function together. We are all in this lifeboat together. If we don't cooperate, if we don't have a civil society, we're all doomed. We can't be a bunch of individuals in that lifeboat and make it. We have to cooperate, we have to get along, we have to function. Now, there are things, for example, that Paul says that are smart. We should not be having endless series of wars. We should do away with, the laws against voluntary actions like drug use and prostitution, things like that. They make perfect sense. Libertarian things that make perfect sense. But he also says things, and other libertarians do as well, as like, we should deregulate everything. We should do away with taxes. No. We should not. We should not deregulate everything. In fact, we need far more regulations than we have now, because deregulations is what has got us into the horrible economic situation we're in at the moment. So There's a difference between individual and civil liberties, and Mr. Clark has helped me understand this in a way that I've never understood before. Now, I'm going to borrow a business axiom, and I'm going to bend it a little here to end my video. As you see, there is no I in we the people.